Hello, and welcome to episode 24 of Could It Be podcast. I have just returned from Austin, Texas, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to record an episode about my first time traveling overseas in 5 years, but also since my explant surgery, because there are a few things that I noticed when it came to how much I was able to do and enjoy this trip. So we'll get straight into the episode. The reason why we went overseas, we weren't actually planning on doing an overseas trip until probably next year. And we were planning on just doing a trip to New Zealand, like, a 6-hour flight from where we live here in Adelaide, I'm pretty sure. But my partner Jacob, he does the intro and outro music to the episodes. He's also in several bands, and the main band that he created years ago, they're called Dean Forever. They were accepted to play at the South by Southwest Festival in Austin in Texas. I'm not normally in the band, and I offered, honestly just joking around, to step in and do their backing vocals because their normal backing singer couldn't make it to the festival, and Jacob jumped on that opportunity. We learnt a couple of harmonies in the car and I picked them up. One thing that I try to do is learn a new hobby every couple of years, and one of them was singing lessons. So I did singing lessons for about 2 years. I've only ever done like showcase concerts that my singing teacher put on, which were amazing. They were great at building my confidence, but I've never done a proper gig. So this was my first experience with the whole shebang when it comes to performing live. Initially, what we thought is we were given a 40-minute set at the South by Southwest official showcase shows. So I learnt 8 songs initially and was really surprised because I didn't really know the songs. I've only heard them live a couple of times, at how much I was able to remember. We learnt 4 songs in half a day, and then slowly learnt the other songs over the next few weeks. So within 2 months, I'd learnt 8 new songs that I'd never really heard or sung before, and wouldn't have been able to do that while I still had my implants. I wouldn't have had the brain function and the memory to be able to remember that and then do it with confidence. And there were a few things where we learnt them one-on-one at home, with Jacob and myself. And then when we went to the band practices, the singer had some different ideas. So I had to sort of relearn a few things again. And again, that would have been something that I would have struggled with so much with my implants. But yeah, I'm just really blown away by the additional brain power I have now. We learnt those initial 8 songs, and then we decided that we would do a gig in Adelaide as a bit of a practice before going over to Texas. And I was given an additional 7 songs, I think it was, to learn in the space of a week, and I did that. I don't know how I managed it. It was just any chance I got, anytime I was in the car, anytime I was able to listen to music at work. I had lyrics available to me. So one night I remember having some little snippets that the singer had recorded for me, and I was listening to those, then singing the song about 5 times while playing my Nintendo. I was playing Pokemon because I'm a grown-up like that. That was my way of sort of cramming that information in, and I was able to achieve that. So learnt those songs and was ready to go for our sort of second to last band practice before the Adelaide gig. And then I was given another song. So this was Sunday, the gig was on Friday. We had one more practice on the Thursday. They were like, oh, we want to do this song as well. So spent less than a week learning a new song and performed it on the Friday. And I was just, again, blown away by what I was able to remember and achieve in that time. The gig went really well. I remembered all of the lyrics. I remembered all of my parts. I don't know how to read music. I'm somebody who listens to a lot of music, and I used to be able to teach myself single note things on the piano, but I've never been able to read music or play chords or anything. But we bought a little microchord, like a little synth machine, and like mini keyboard type thing, and I learnt keyboard parts for 4 or 5 of the songs and was able to remember those as well without having any kind of prompts in front of me. So that was really amazing. When it comes to the flight, it was actually the longest flight that I've ever done before. So I've only been overseas once before. That was around the same time of the year in 2018, where I went to Hawaii, and I think the flight from Australia to Hawaii was maybe 9.5 hours, and it was 10.5 hours on the way back. But we went from Adelaide to Melbourne to San Francisco, and that was a 13.5 hour flight. Now, if I had completed that kind of flight, while I still had breast implant illness, I would have got up anytime that I'd been sitting down for a few hours and not been able to stand up straight for a while. My back and my hips would have been in like agony from the joint pain that I had. But I managed that flight really well. I only got up and walked around a few times. I tried to sleep in line with Austin's time and managed to get a few hours of sleep in, which I don't normally do on flights. So yeah, I was glad to get a little bit of sleep in. And then our first night in Austin, I think we slept for about 11 hours, just catching up on not being able to sleep that much on the flight. One thing I noticed as soon as I got over there is my hair loss started to come back in a big way. Now, the week in the lead up to leaving for this trip, work suddenly became super busy and I was just constantly in like flight mode. I was just go, go, go all day, really stressing about getting things completed before I went on holidays. And also I didn't pack until maybe the Tuesday and we were leaving early on the Friday morning. So there was a lot of stuff, even once I'd finished work and had a full on day, there was a lot that I needed to do when I got home from work. So it may have been the stress of the lead up to the trip, but it also may have been the body stress that flights put on your body. But my hair just fell out big time. My first shower, I just remember pulling out handfuls of it, and it was probably, I'd say, like slightly worse than it was when I had BII, so before my explant surgery. This kept happening throughout the whole stay, and I had to clear the drain in the shower at our Airbnb 2 or 3 times because it started to clog up because that much hair was sitting on it. So it was a bit scary to see. It seems to have slowed down a little bit since I've been home, but yeah, I'm hoping it stops soon because I've had so much new hair grow. Like, you can still see the little flyaway. It's hard to tame the baby hairs, but I don't want to lose much more because, yeah, I gained it back after my surgery. So we'll see how that goes. I noticed over there, my skin became super sensitive, and I don't know whether it's a difference in the water. My younger sister went over to Vegas a few years ago and she noticed that the water was really harsh on her hair, and she was like, go, like buy a hair treatment before you go over there, just because of how your hair might react to it. So my hair seemed fine. It did go static whenever I washed it. Like, it would just, I'd brush it after blow drying it and it would just fly everywhere. It was super static. I don't know what that was about. But yeah, where my watch sits, I developed a rash, and the back of my hands became so dry that my knuckles started cracking. So I don't know what it is about the water over there, but my skin didn't seem to like it. Because a lot of the things around South by Southwest tended to start lunchtime onwards, my partner and I would get up every morning and go for a fairly big walk. Some of them were over an hour, just to see the area that we were staying in and see what kind of restaurants and cafes were close to where we were staying. And again, going back to when I had BII, that kind of thing, I probably would have said no to it. Like, I would have said no to this whole trip. I would have said no to, you know, learning new songs and having that experience, because I knew how tired and how much pain I would be suffering from after going through that kind of thing. And yeah, coming back to the walks, I wouldn't have wanted to do them because it would have then impacted my ability to do stuff later on in the day. But you know, most days I think it may have been except for 1 or 2, and that was when we had earlier gigs in the day. We went for these really big walks. We'd also like come back, get ready, go out and about, and because we didn't hire a car, like driving on the opposite side of the road, we just thought it would be a bit dangerous and a bit scary. So we ride shared everywhere, and we would go to places and then we'd sort of walk between places, and I was walking in my non-supportive shoes and managed that really well. There were days where we did close to 20,000 steps because we were just walking around so much, and didn't suffer any hip pain or back pain from that walking. So that was a really positive experience post explant to be able to manage, you know, a holiday where we were walking around a lot and not then impact my ability to do other things and impact how the holiday then was for other people as well. So yeah, super happy with that. So I guess this isn't really breast implant illness related, but like, you know, this was my second, third and fourth gig. We kind of worked out while we were over there that I have performed more times in a different country than I have in Australia, which was cool. But performing in front of groups of people, and like especially over there, the live music scene's super cool. It was just such an awesome experience. Like you kind of feed off of the energy of the crowd. And our official South by Southwest show was on the Friday night at a place called the Lowdown Lounge, and the crowd there were amazing. You know, we were coming from Australia and we didn't know how many people had heard the music before or who were necessarily there just for us, but they were amazing. Like you kind of, what you look at the crowd when you can see them, like the lighting wasn't so bad that I couldn't see people out in the crowd, which was encouraging for me, because we kept people there in the audience the whole time and they sort of egged us on and cheered us on. It was just this feeling that I've never experienced before, and something took over me. I just turned into someone completely different, where I was just overwhelmed with happiness and excitement and stuff. And like we got off stage and I was just like, I just did that. Like these are experiences that I've never had before and probably never would have really done before when I was like living my life in pain and living my life in brain fog. So yeah, that just really, really amazing experience. And you know, I'm looking forward to maybe doing some more, because yeah, it was just like nothing else, like really cool. Another really cool thing that happened when I was over there, if you haven't checked out the other podcast on breast implant illness, Empowered Explant, yet, please go ahead and do it. So Darnah Mercica is the host of that podcast. She's actually initially from where I'm from in Adelaide and lives in Austin now. And I reached out to her before traveling over there going like, hey, like I'm going to be in Austin for this date range. If you're around, would you like to catch up? And we caught up, and my goodness, like you see her on social media and she's super happy and she's like kind of quirky and cool and stuff, but in person she's just so nice. You never know what to expect from someone when you see them, like, you know, their life on social media versus in person. But she was so beautiful and so nice. We did try to record an episode while we caught up. It was like a last minute decision. Hopefully the recording works. We were kind of playing around with a new microphone, but if not, we'll catch up for another episode online now that I'm home. But that was really cool to catch up with her, because she's also explanted longer ago than I have, and she's super happy with how she's feeling now. And we're just sort of talking about like Adelaide and podcasting and explanting, and yeah, it was really cool to catch up with her while I was over there. So hi Darnah, if you're listening to this, and thanks for catching up. But yeah, check out her Empowered Explant podcast if you haven't yet. So some cool things about this trip: seeing a new place and seeing how other people live, seeing the architecture, the houses. Austin seems like there's been sort of houses that were on massive blocks or big spaces in between them with different kind of buildings then put between them afterwards. So looking at all of the architecture as we were walking around was super cool. Finding new places to eat. Texas barbecue, like we asked one of our Uber drivers, like, what is one thing that we must do while we're here? And he's like, absolutely, if you're not vegetarian, go to a Texas barbecue place. And he gave us a couple of options, and one was called Terry Black's, and that was actually the name of one of my karate teachers when I was a kid. So we're like, let's go to that. And that was something else. Like, it was this chaotic venue where you have to decide right at that minute, like, what you want to get. So we're like, oh, what sides first? And then what meat? And like how you choose was just something I've never seen before here in Australia. We really enjoyed the whole experience, and the food was amazing. So we ended up going back on our last night in Austin. Yeah, that's something that I was glad that we gave that a go. Obviously, another cool thing about the trip was meeting Darnah. The people were really lovely. So pretty much everyone that I spoke to was super friendly. Our Uber drivers, the staff that were working at the venue, especially we did a showcase with Sounds Australia, and the sound techs, I actually went up to them. I said, look, this is my third ever gig. I don't know what I'm doing, so if I'm getting in the way, please let me know. And the guy's like, no, you're fine. And he took a bit of extra time when he was explaining things to me, and he's like, do you need this? Do you need that? And I think they were locals, because he was telling me about an ice or snowstorm that had happened there not long before we arrived. And yeah, they were super friendly. We also performed on the tiny van, and it's some people from New York that had driven this trailer that they'd built with a pop-up stage, and they were really lovely as well. So anyone that we met there was super nice. The only one person that was rude was a muso from Australia. Yeah, any of the locals that we spoke to were so lovely. And I know I have mentioned this already, but the crowds at the gigs, like, so the Sounds Australia one, there were a lot of people that stopped us afterwards and said that we did like an awesome job, and I think a lot of them were also Australian musicians, and that was really cool. But we had this moment after our Friday night gig. My partner and I walked down the street to wait for an Uber. We had all of our gear with us, but like down a side street, like, you know, a bit of a walk away from the venue, and people noticed us. They must have been at our set, gone up the road, and were sort of heading back towards where we played. And they yelled from down the street, like, "You guys were amazing. We really enjoyed your set." And that was cool. Like, you know, I don't think we'd get that at home. I don't know. Like, this is sort of, you know, my first exposure to being someone on stage and doing live music. But that was really cool. We're like, wow, people recognized us on the street 2 hours after seeing us. I was wearing a jacket that I wasn't wearing on stage. We were carrying things. It was dark. Like, it was just, yeah, super cool. So awesome local live music scene for sure. One thing that I mentioned to the lead singer and to the guitarist's girlfriend, I was like, there were moments during the sets where I got overwhelmed with emotion and nearly cried on stage several times. So Rhiannon, who's the guitarist's girlfriend, she knew after my first set that had happened. So during my second set, she came around the side of the stage and checked that it was okay. That was really cool. Like, there was these moments when all of that was happening, and I had no control over the situation. I had no control over my emotions in that moment. But yeah, it was like really cool and interesting, and like, yeah, just to see how I reacted to it. One thing I've noticed when I've been on stage is I am exactly in that moment right at that time. So in any other moment in my life, there's a lot that goes on in my brain. I didn't realize until speaking with my partner that not everybody has that internal monologue. I have that. I've also got several songs going on at once. I've also got this running to-do list going in my brain at any moment. So I sort of describe my mind as very busy. And when I'm on stage, that is all that's going on in my brain, and it's so awesome to sort of be in that, exactly in that moment. So, you know, if there is something where I need to step in and sing a bit extra, or, you know, I know that I need to change, like, I'm not, you know, super experienced with this synthesizer machine, but I know that at the start of this song I need to up the octave, I need to do this, like, you know, that kind of stuff is just happening right in that very moment. And I wish there was a way that I can make my brain work like that all the time. But yeah, like I switched to this completely different way of thinking, and I'm right there in that very moment, just processing what I need to do for the time that the set is going on. So yeah, new thing to learn about myself there. Now, as much as my flight over was okay, the flight home was a little different. So this is where, I don't know, we weren't eating very healthily while we were over there. So some of this is probably my own doing, but we had an initial flight which went from Austin to San Francisco, and that was about a 3.5 hour flight. And during that flight, my calf muscles, like my lower legs, got super inflamed. It was like I was retaining heaps of fluid throughout them. And we got off of our flight. It was delayed a little bit from Austin to San Francisco, and then once we got there, the plane pulled up too close, which meant we had to wait in the plane for a little while to move where they could put that air bridge. Anyway, we were delayed anyway. We didn't even know what gate we needed to be at, so I stopped and asked a staff member where the San Francisco to Melbourne flight was, and he's like, "Oh, you better hurry because you've got less than 2 hours and it's quite a distance away." So we had to like walk quite fast to get to this gate. And I ended up, because my legs were inflamed, I was wearing sensible shoes, I was wearing sneakers. Like, when I fly, I expect that I'm possibly going to retain a bit of fluid. So I made sure that I wore like loose fitting clothing, even like down to like what crop top I wore. Like, I think I've mentioned in previous episodes that if I wear one that's too tight, my hands can end up getting puffy. And that's something that I'm still going to talk with my GP or a naturopath about. But yeah, my legs, they were super bad, and it was to the point where it was so painful walking, let alone walking fast, that I was nearly in tears. But I'm like, no, we need to get there. Like, I can't miss this flight, because that might mean not being able to leave until the next day to come home. And I really missed my dogs at that point, so I just wanted to get home. But yeah, I was in quite a bit of pain. We got there and they hadn't even started boarding yet, so we're like, oh, we rushed for nothing. Yeah, it was all good. And the long haul flight from San Fran to Melbourne, so on the way back it was a bit longer, 15 plus hours. I seemed to get more inflamed during that flight. I slept a bit more, and again I tried to align my sleep with Adelaide time, so kept myself awake for a couple of hours at the start of the flight. We didn't leave until like midnight from San Francisco, which I've never done before. Waited until it was about 8:30 Adelaide time before I tried to have some sleep, and got a little bit, watched some movies, and they kept the cabin dark the whole time, so I didn't read my book or anything, but also probably didn't move around quite as much as I should have. And by the time I got to Melbourne, we had to pick up our bags, go through customs, and drop our bags off again to get the short flight from Melbourne to Adelaide. But my legs, my calves were that loaded that I couldn't move them. Like, you sort of move any of your like leg around and it will it'll move, it'll jiggle or whatever. There was just so firm and full of fluid that I couldn't move them, and I was a little bit worried about what was going on there. By the time I got home, it was just really bad. But got home, said hello to the dogs and played with them for a bit, and got in the sauna straight away just to see what I could do about that fluid retention and the inflammation and stuff. Had a decent 10-hour sleep when I got home, and the next day I made sure I drank a lot of water, but I was getting rid of that fluid retention. This is yesterday. Yeah, this is yesterday that I was getting rid of that fluid retention, feeling back to normal now. Yeah, I was a little bit worried there that I might need to get some medical attention for that, because I haven't had that before. Any other time I've flown, I haven't had that kind of experience. It's been a while, so I can't remember for sure, but and then any other flights that I'd really had before this were ones that I had while I had breast implant illness, so there was probably an element of pain that I was used to having all of the time, but not that kind of swelling. Like, that was something else. So I'm glad that's cleared itself up today, because I look and feel normal again. So I think that's all I've really got to share about that. Just to wrap up, I guess this is something that I probably wouldn't have even said yes to while I was living with breast implant illness, before I knew what it was as well. Oh no, here come the dogs. Yeah, so it's probably something that I wouldn't have said yes to while I had breast implant illness, but something I wouldn't have enjoyed as much either, because of the pain that I was used to experiencing. Sorry, there's Harper, my golden retriever. But yeah, super happy for the experience and seeing somewhere new that I wouldn't have had on my list otherwise, because it is a really cool place. Had a similar vibe to Adelaide. But yeah, thankful for being able to do that and to enjoy it and to see some new things. So yeah, that's all from me for this episode, and hopefully I'll be back soon with some more stories of other women who have been through explanting or are about to. And yeah, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you next time. This podcast shares my own experience and research. I'm not a medical or health professional. You can find me on Instagram at BII podcast. Thank you to my incredibly talented partner Jacob Tengdale for the intro and outro music. All recording, editing and artwork is done by me. Thank you for listening.